Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hey everyone, welcome back to Right on Track. Joining me today is a very, very special guest. She has been my friend in the music industry from the very beginning. She gave me my very first review, and the rest has been an incredible, incredible journey. So please welcome Jess Cambridge from the Fierce and Fabulous Revolution blog. Hey Jess,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How's you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited you are joining me today. We are going to be chatting all about running a music blog, and I cannot wait to get into this. So, before we do that, can you share with everyone a little about yourself and what inspired you to start your blog?
Okay, so my name's Jess and I'm from the UK, and I originally set up this blog to help independent artists sort of have more of a platform to share their songs without any fear of judgment, to sort of just like share positive reviews and to give them sort of a safe place to share their songs without, any bad judgment.
That's fantastic. And I think you bring up a really great point. And it's really special that you had a focus on independent artists because there's so many gatekeepers in the industry. And being one of the people who is so open to interviewing independent artists and reviewing our music is greatly appreciated. So, is there a story behind the name of your blog?
Well, it's actually kind of like quite a funny story to be honest with you, because when I first set up this blog, I kind of obviously set it up for independent artists, but I also wanted to sort of share like two sides of a blog. So I was going to have it sort of one side focusing on music and the other side actually focused on sort of wrestling, which is a very weird combination, I know. And I thought when I was coming up with the name, I just wanted something that would reflect the balance of it. And that's kind of how Fierce and Fabulous Revolution sort of came together. So something that's so sort of determined, but also so sort of beautiful, so magical, can all sort of work together to create sort of harmony.
I love that. And I have to say, when I first stumbled upon your blog and saw the name, I was immediately hooked. It's such a good title, and I love it so much. So, why did you end up shifting directions and chose to focus specifically on music?
So if you sort of go way, 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 way back on my blog, you'll sort of see that there was a few sort of posts about wrestling, but the more and more it was going on, I was just sort of thought, you know what, I'm just going to sort of shift focus onto music because I don't really know, to be honest, why I dropped it because I have like over the years combined the posts over sort of I've had sort of wrestlers talk about their sort of, music entrances and all that and and how they select their music entrances and stuff. But I think I just more shifted towards music, and then to be honest with you, I never knew why I dropped it. I sometimes think about bringing it back, but I'm not really sure.
Well, that's a really interesting story, and also if you think about it too, it's like you mentioned yourself that those are two very different things, and one of the things I'm sure we will dive into later in our conversation is target audience, and I think the music audience, especially with independent artists, may be quite different from a wrestling audience. And so I think, in a way, sticking just with music maybe was a good decision, even if you weren't really sure why you made that choice. And I think that if you still have an interest in doing more posts about wrestling, either dedicate a whole section of the blog to it or even launch a completely different blog. But it's really interesting. I did not know that that was your initial idea when you started.
Yeah, not a lot of people do, to be honest. And like you say, I think that's why I think I kind of realized really early on that obviously the two sort of target audiences don't really, combine. And I thought about setting up another one, but I think I just wanted to focus solely on one. And I think part of me was like, you know what, I'm gonna stick with the independent artist route for now and
Mm.
sort of, and just see how that goes. And you never know, one day I might set up another blog and might,
Yeah.
run them side by side. You never know.
Yeah, no, awesome, awesome. So let's dive into our quote for this episode. So can you read that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a blog is only as interesting as the interest shown in others.
And who's that by?
Lee Odin.
Awesome, awesome. So why did you select this one?
So basically, I kind of feel it's really interesting when you're sort of reading a blog, a website or listening to a podcast that it's always you can be hearing about the same sort of song, but sometimes one will stick out more than the other because they're so passionate about it. They're so interested, they're so invested in sort of sharing the message of this song. And sometimes some feels like it's just like a copy and paste. And I always feel more sort of invested reading or listening to something or somebody who's more excited about what they're sharing than someone who's just copying and pasting.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely seen people copy and paste press releases of mine, and it's like, you took no time at all with this.
Literally.
No, but I think too, like, that's a really great point because when you think of the music industry, it's a very collaborative industry, and it's definitely a place where you you really need to show interest in others. If you want people to care about what you're doing, you need to show interest in others. And so I think that whether it's a blog like yours or whether it's a podcast like what I'm doing, you're definitely showing interest in other people. I am by having people on the show and seeing that mutual connection of showing interest in each other's work and what everybody is bringing to the industry is really, really important. Because also, too, Jess, like you're thinking about the readers, right? Like it's not just between you and the artist that you're interviewing or reviewing. You also need to focus on your readership and building that and making sure that everything you're posting is interesting for your readers as well. So definitely showing interest all the way around is really important. So I'm really curious. So what caused you to decide the kind of content that you wanted to share on your blog?
It's quite an interesting story, to be honest, because I was sort of in my final year of college and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was studying like film and TV production, and part of me really wanted to sort of focus on writing, and I wasn't sure whether to do it or not. And when it sort of came to an end, I thought, I don't know why, I just saw so many sort of artists trying to get their voices heard. And I was doing like a few sort of write ups for a few websites. And I sort of noticed if I find like a song or something by an artist, be like, hey, like this song's really good. Maybe I can write a feature for this. And be like, oh, no, no, no. It doesn't have like a lot of fans or they don't have a lot of followers on their page. And I think, well, it's a really good song. What's the difference between what followers they have? And sort of by the end of that year, after sort of delving into sort of the industry a bit, I thought, you know what? Why don't I just set up a website that's focusing solely on promoting these artists so they do get a voice, they don't keep getting rejected, so they actually have sort of a safe place to share their music.
That's so important. And I think that you bring up a great point with today. People are so focused on numbers and streams and followers. But how are we supposed to get anywhere if nobody's taking a chance on us, right? And I think that you taking so much of your time to promote independent artists and giving us a platform, and for many, I'm sure, being the first to interview or to review. You were the very first one to review me, and just from the artist standpoint, that gave me massive confidence because before you, like all I got was rejection and maybe not even straight up rejection, just ignored. And so I think that you do a great service to so many artists, giving them that first review or that first interview and making artists feel like, hey, maybe my song is good. Maybe my story does matter. And that would just really motivate them to keep trying. And so I think that's a very, very important part of what you do as well.
Oh, thank you. I really actually do appreciate that. It's always like lovely to sort of hear feedback like that. And I sometimes like will write a review and you always get like, oh, thank you so much. And I always feel like, every single review I write, every single interview, I'm always so like gracious to be part and be able to actually review or interview an artist because it's sort of no matter how often you do this, every song is as special as the last. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And you're being part of that artist's journey. And who knows, maybe down the road they'll break into the mainstream and you can literally look back and say, I was one of the first to ever interview them. And now they're getting all these massive interviews. I think that being one of the incredible parts of that journey is really special from both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you ever get nominated for like a Grammy Award, Demi, just give me a shout out. That'd be really appreciated.
Absolutely, absolutely. So another question I have for you is what do you look for in pitch emails? And I know you have feelings about this and I do too, so let's get into it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. I think for me, it's try and make it as personal as you can, and I understand that's really hard because when obviously you, from like obviously your standpoint, when you're promoting a song, like would send emails to hundreds of blogs, like podcasts, reviewers, interviews, everything to obviously try and get the song heard. So it's really hard to make each email as personal as the last. But I think if you just include, even just like if you look up who the name of the person you're sending it to, that shows obviously you've taken a little bit of time to sort of you know put thought into that. And even because I've been responsible of this myself as well. When you send an email, if you send the wrong name, there's nothing wrong with obviously messaging back going, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I put the wrong name," because that just shows you're human. It gives you everyone a good laugh, and for me, that always like makes me a little bit more interested because you're like, "Oh, this person is actually taking time to obviously email this pitch. They've obviously looked at it," and you think it just shows you're human. It makes a good story, to be fair.
Yeah. Oh, the wrong name thing? Yeah, sorry to put this person on blast, but somebody emailed me, "Hi, Ross and Joe." There is not a Ross or a Joe that hosts this show. Where'd you even get that name? Like, if you found the email for this podcast, you had to have done it in two places, on my website or in the show notes. My name is all over the place. I don't understand how you can screw this up. And then the funny part is they even followed up like 2 weeks later and still put the wrong name. So yeah, that just shows that one, not researching, two, probably just copy and pasting. And the other thing too is just like the other thing too, I think, is don't do the whole like blast email blanket email thing too. That just shows that you're just being grouped together with a bunch of other people and you're not important to that artist, right? And so I think that, just taking the time, I do this, I don't group people together. I send separate emails to every single person. Sure, I copy and paste a press release, but in terms of like the intro paragraph and personalizing it, it's definitely something I take time on because going back to the quote, I want this person to show interest in me. So if I didn't show any interest whatsoever in their platform, I'm just going to be one more artist and hundreds and thousands of artists that aren't personalizing things. And at the end of the day, the ones that are going to stand out are the ones that personalize it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's like sort of going back to sort of the wrong name thing as well. It's like there was sort of one PR company like years ago that like messaged me. I can't even remember the name they put, but it was obviously like the wrong name. I think it was like Caitlin or something. And they messaged back like within like immediately sort of saying like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've messaged the wrong thing." And it was this good laugh. And I've been like writing reviews to them for like years, and that just sort of shows like anything. You can just like if you just make it that little bit personal, you can just make it, you can sort of build that little bit of a foundation straight away. It can just be like from the first email, really.
Yeah. So, also, aside from the whole getting the name right and being personal in any way you can, what kind of content do you like to see in your emails that helps you get to know the artist and their song better in order for you to go about doing a review or an interview?
I think to have as much sort of information as possible, but also sort of put it into short paragraphs. So it's obviously easy to find what bits of information you're looking for at the same time. And I think obviously have a link to your song because it's always surprising sometimes how many songs sometimes you get sent, obviously, like saying, "Hi, can you review my song?" You'd be like, "Yeah, sure, can I listen to it?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, I should probably send it to you actually." And you're like, "Yeah, maybe it helps a little bit." But yeah, obviously, like, again, that also builds up that sort of personal foundation kind of thing. But yeah, I think just sort of obviously as much detail about yourself, about the song, what, story behind the song, I think as long as you have that, those are the key things I think anyone sort of looks for when they're getting sort of pitched an email, pitched a song. And yeah, I think that's always the main things to sort of put. Like, obviously, I don't always think putting your entire life story on email is great because obviously you're looking for sort of sharp points, but also I think putting as much information, like key information as possible really helps.
Yeah, you bring up a really great point with not the whole life story. And I think that's where like an EPK or something like a website can come in because when I'm pitching my stuff, Like, I know exactly what I'm pitching, whether that be a single or a project. And so that's the focus of the press release. But at the bottom of that, I can say, here is a link to my website and my EPK if you want to learn more and like get my whole backstory and all that. So I think you have a really great point of just when you're sending the emails, and I'm sure you get like tons of emails, just get to the point, but give a direction for a place you can go if you want more information on that person, but not actually overwhelming you in the email itself.
Yeah, definitely an EPK is absolutely a lifesaver sometimes. And it's like I find that sometimes if you don't attach it, like if you obviously look up this artist, you can find their website and find it. But I think if you attach it all to the email, then it can just give you just more time for people to find it. You know, it's well, I say more time, it saves sort of time, obviously, trying to find out information about it or trying to find information even about the song that sometimes can take a while to find because sometimes like you hear a song and it's obviously sometimes some songs can obviously be interpreted in different ways and you don't want to obviously send the wrong message to sort of readers if it's about something else. So obviously trying to find that out sometimes can be a bit difficult. But obviously if that's how you interpret it, that's how you interpret it. But it's also you want to obviously share the facts at the end of the day.
That never even crossed my mind. I'm like mind blown right now. That never even crossed my mind that, from the reviewing standpoint, you want to make sure you're not delivering the wrong message. Yeah, no, that's really important. And I'm happy now that I literally put in my press releases little quotes from me and explain the inspiration. But for people who don't do that, yeah, I can definitely see the worry of you interpreting it not wrong because music is subjective, and the whole point about releasing these songs into the world from the artist's point of view is that it's not mine anymore, right? It's for the world to interpret and take what they need from. But at the end of the day, I think that part of the review and part of interviews comes from the artist's intent with that song, whether it's how you interpret it or somebody else interprets it, but delivering that from the artist's point of view too is important. So that never even crossed my mind. Really, really great point there.
I think as well it was like obviously when I first sort of started writing and everything and at the time I didn't really have an inbox set up so I'd just like look for songs obviously to review. And there was I can't remember who the artist was now, and I feel really bad about it, but there was one song, and I sort of wrote this review, and I thought, and they messaged after saying, "Oh, I'm really grateful, but you got the." Or I think I wrote that the song was obviously a really sweet love song, but it was actually a breakup song, and I thought, oh,
Oh no, that wasn't me. That definitely wasn't me.
yeah, it wasn't you, don't worry. It was, and I afterwards I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, but they were like, it obviously was quite funny a story afterwards, but after that, I'm always like, I just want to make sure, obviously, I've got this right.
Yeah.
But they said, "Yeah, it can be interpreted in different ways. It's absolutely fine." But yeah, after that, sometimes when I hear a song, I'm like, not 100% sure which way it's going, so I just want to double check.
No, great point. Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. So, something I also want to chat with you about is what it takes to run a blog. Because I don't think, like, unless somebody either runs a blog or runs a podcast or does anything of that sort, you don't know the work that goes involved. So, can you just walk through your process from either finding a song to review or interview an artist or getting that email all the way to the moment when that goes live on your blog?
So basically, I think it starts like obviously when you get like emails in your inbox and you go through them. I think the journey from obviously inbox to kind of sharing it, it can be either a matter of days, it can be weeks. It obviously depends on obviously how far out the press release is sent because sometimes you can get them a month in advance, sometimes you can get them the day of. It can be obviously quite hit and miss. And I think, yeah, you kind of like if you're sending it a month in advance, obviously you have as much obviously time leeway to sort of suggest what sort of dates you want. But I think if you send it the day of release, sometimes you should be prepared. Obviously, you might have to wait a little bit of time because obviously obviously you have like a waiting list. You obviously have, songs you add to the list of reviews, you have set dates. So obviously you don't want to rush a review and just post it. Obviously you want to spend time working on them. So sometimes I suggest maybe a week or two minimum to if you want it done for release day. But after that I think you can kind of just share whenever. If you've got a song coming out in a month, then yeah, I think sort of, between a month and I'd say about 2 weeks before the release date are quite a good idea to send, because then you'll have more sort of time to sort of work with your sort of the person you're sending it to, because from my standpoint, I would obviously listen to the song, obviously then start working on it, and it can take obviously quite a few hours. It can even take like a day sometimes to work on a review, depending on obviously how much detail is written, obviously sometimes how much, you know, if you especially like interviews and stuff, because obviously when you're working on an interview, you obviously put more time into looking and researching questions because you obviously want to give the artist as much spotlight as possible. You don't want to obviously look like you just copied and pasted questions to send over. You want to show obviously you spent as much time obviously working on this interview as they've spent obviously reaching out to you, and obviously that song is really special to them and you really want to portray that sort of, obviously how good the song is, you really want to portray that to readers. And I think just by obviously doing it within a matter of hours just obviously looks like you just rushed it. But yeah, I'd say about a day or so really is how long I spend on probably about each review, maybe.
Yeah, that's a great point with submitting stuff in advance. And that just goes back to, from the artist standpoint, making sure you have your master and your artwork and submit it for distribution in advance, because you need to leave time to send out emails to people. Like, I have a song coming out in a couple weeks and I'm about to send out a press release for it, and it's like 3 weeks away. So that's in advance. I'm not sending it the day before. Hey, I have a song out tomorrow. Can you review it now? But I think it's really important for us to keep in mind that in our world, like, I try not to think of it this way, but some artists do, that in their world, it's their song and they're trying to get their song out and they're trying to get it to as many people as possible. But what I need to remember, and what I hope other artists remember too, is that from the other side, you're getting tons and tons of emails from multiple different artists for reviews or interviews, and those have different timelines. The reviews maybe can take not as much time because that's just something you're doing on your own. But when it comes to the interviews, you got to come up with the questions and send them out. Then you got to wait for the artist to answer the questions, which can be quick or it can take a while. Then you need to go through and format it and upload it to the website and set it for publishing and all that. So there definitely is a timeline involved. So I think that's a really great point you brought up there.
Basically, you want to showcase the artist as much as possible. Obviously, it's basically you're just helping obviously promote them at the end of the day, and obviously that's what I love to do. And so I don't really mind obviously how much time it spends because it's just obviously a joy at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think for anybody who does any sort of music journalism, whether that be the blog or the podcast or anything, it's because we love it. And we're doing this for free because we love it. We're not charging people to submit for us, we're not charging their publication or whatever. And I think that artists really need to remember that every single person who gives us a platform is doing it out of a passion, and just remembering the respect side of it too, because I know you've had situations where it's like you might have felt under pressure to release something, or if it wasn't at the time that artists wanted, they didn't want you to post it at all, which is baffling to me. I don't understand how people can be that way, but I think remembering respect this entire process is extremely important as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, like sometimes if you get sort of an artist message you and they're like, "Oh, can you publish it on this day?" You're like, "Oh, sorry, it's obviously a bit close. Do you mind if I publish it maybe a few days later?" And they're like, "Oh, well, no, don't worry about it then." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sorry." And then I feel really guilty, obviously,
Yeah.
because you want to obviously give a platform, but you're like, I'm sorry, I don't have time. Like, obviously, I don't want to rush it. I'm sorry." It's obviously giving as much respect to others as you would want to be respected at the end of the day. I think it obviously is a two-way street. And I think obviously if you have that understanding and obviously have as much respect as, someone's giving you, then I think you're obviously in a good place. And I think that's the number one rule at the end of the day.
You're taking the time to review or interview an artist. So I think also in terms of respect, when that goes live, every single artist should be posting that review or that interview on their EPKs or on their website, on their social media, to acknowledge it, because just from, in being in the boat of hosting the podcast, I've had guests on who don't even post about their episodes, don't thank me after it goes live, which I'm not going to go cry in the corner over that, because I did this because I love to interview them and have them on the show or whatever. But it's also a little like heartbreaking when you dedicate time to somebody and they don't acknowledge it at all after the fact. So I think that's a part of being respectful as well.
Oh, definitely. It's kind of as well, and I think everyone has this problem, but and I'm just gonna say it's like the follow unfollow game. It's like when someone follows you and there's like, oh yeah, I really want you to do a review, I really want to do this, I really want to do that, and you're like, absolutely, I can't wait to do it. And you'll post a review and they unfollow you the next day and never mention
What?
anything, and you're like,
People
oh,
do this?
okay. Oh, definitely,
Oh my
100%.
god. What is wrong with people? I don't understand.
It's like obviously you don't have to obviously follow everyone, and it's like, definitely over time, obviously, like, opinions change. Obviously, like, you don't have to follow everyone over time. People unfollow everyone, unfollow people. It's just obviously part and parcel. But I always just doesn't ever fail to surprise me now when someone follows you, like, a couple days after you've done a review, and you're like, oh, okay.
I'm floored. If you're listening, don't do this to somebody who gives you a platform. Just don't.
Oh, definitely. There was obviously not gonna name names, but there was sort of one artist, and I don't think it was them personally. It was more sort of the manager, but they would follow, like, obviously wanting the song promoted, and then obviously after it was shared, they'd unfollow, like, a couple days afterwards, and this happened, like, 3 times, and then on, like, the 4th time they came back, I thought, "You know what? Nah, I'm not really sure, like, I don't really feel the same sort of it's gonna be the same sort of process," and then afterwards, I think if you keep doing that to people, obviously you're just gonna not obviously upset them, 'cause like you say, you're not obviously gonna go and cry in a corner about it at the end of the day, but obviously you're thinking, "Well, why am I gonna write this if you're not gonna obviously share it, and then you're just gonna unfollow me within 24 hours?"
Yeah, super shady. Yeah, not good at all. So, one of the final things I wanted to chat with you about is the importance of consistency and quality. So, can you talk a little about this?
Yeah, I think with that, I think obviously, like I say, like, I like to spend as much time as possible working on reviews, and sometimes I think maybe I spend a little bit too much time overthinking reviews, and then I can just sit there for hours, like, reading it over and over again and thinking, "Is it right? I feel like I'm missing something." Sort of getting because obviously you wanna deliver it as best as possible, and sometimes you'll get, like, you'll go away, come back, you think, "Actually, that was perfect all along, it was absolutely fine." But yeah, I think when you're working on, like, obviously reviews and interviews, the key is obviously not to rush it out. Absolutely don't rush it out at all. I think obviously you have to spend as much time as possible because, like, obviously circling back to the respect thing, obviously you want to show you've spent time on this. You want to show that you're invested, you're interested, you're excited about this because no one's gonna read a review and get excited from something you just spent like 5 minutes on. I think from sort of a standpoint, I enjoy like reading reviews as well on other blogs, like where you can see they're so excited about this song and you think, oh, I really want to listen to that now. And I think, yeah, I think as much time and as much obviously your own personal thoughts and opinions can obviously draw people because you think, wow, they really enjoyed the song, they really got into it. And I think by doing that, it helps to sort of get people more excited about songs when something you just sort of say, you know what, yeah, it was good. But when you actually like listen to something, oh, it's amazing, it was fantastic, and you explain why it's all those things, I think that's when everyone really gets excited about it.
Yeah, that's a really great point, and I think that ties into the target audience as well because when you're publishing these interviews and reviews, yes, you're supporting the artist, but ultimately, another huge part of your audience is potential listeners, right? Like you want to get these listeners excited and your readers excited about the song you're talking about in order for them to go listen. So I definitely think that keeping quality in mind and having that excitement and making each post unique and not copy and pasting press releases like we talked about at the beginning, I think that does a huge role because I've read songs on your blog that I want to go listen to just because of what you said about them. Like I think that was one of the main reasons why I was so drawn to submit to you in the first place was because I saw you post about songs that popped up on my feed before I even really knew of you, and just the way you spoke about songs made me go listen, and I was like, "Oh, wow, maybe, I could be one of those artists that Jess talks about and someone goes and listens to me too." And so it's definitely coming across that you're taking so much time with these and also you're posting consistently and you're keeping that engagement up as well. So you're doing all the right things for sure.
Oh, thank you. And as well, like last month, I set myself sort of a goal as well that I was going to publish a review or an interview every single day. And I think I'm on day 31 now of consistent, posts. And I think by doing that as well, it helps to drive obviously more readers, more obviously more listeners to songs, and I've had more and more comments of people sort of saying, "Oh, I just listened to this song and I love this artist. I just added this to my playlist. I just added this. I've just sent this to my friend." And you think, "Wow, it's actually showing. Obviously, it's coming across. It's obviously the more consistent you are and more time you spend into it, it shows people really are interested and invested. And it always just makes me smile when you see someone that's saying, "Oh, I read your review and I've added this song to my playlist." And I think, wow, that's obviously shown there's another listener to that song. And even if you think, like, even if it's just one listener, you think there's one more listener to this artist who could become a huge fan. They could become, a loyal fan. They could become, someone who's going to go to their shows, buy merchandise, support them just as much as, all of us want to support them. And you think that's the whole point at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably super validating for you too, knowing that you played a massive role in that. Because the last thing you want is to spend so much time, put all this out online and don't get anything back from it. So the fact that you're getting those comments and you're reading messages from readers saying that they're going to listen to these songs is fantastic because I mean, if I were you, that would definitely give me motivation to keep on going because you are making a difference.
Definitely. I think it's just as well, it's just a joy of obviously being able to say you're like someone's cheerleader. I just love being a cheerleader on the sidelines. I just love it. It's just like it just fills me with joy. And I think it doesn't also matter as well, but obviously hearing about, what people think of sort of me as a person, I just love like hearing what people say about artists that I write about. And I just love seeing them obviously find artists they love as well. It's like, a win-win at the situation. It obviously helps an artist and obviously helps someone find another artist they're gonna love. And then because it's like I don't know about you, but it's like that feeling when you find a new artist whose music just hits you on a different
Yeah.
level. It's just absolutely incredible.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect. Perfect. Well, Jess, to wrap things up, what is some advice you would like to share with anyone listening who may be interested in starting their own music blog?
I think just obviously write from as cliche as it's gonna sound, I would say just write from your heart at the end of the day because I think like we are sort of going back, just don't obviously follow the norm, don't copy press release, don't obviously copy what everyone else is doing because that's, you know, as cliche as it sounds, everyone else has already taken just be you, and that will be enough at the end of the day because we're all unique. We all have different, different factors that we all have different, selling points. We all have different, aspects that people love. And I think just being yourself and obviously writing consistently and like consistently in quality is absolutely key to starting a blog. And as long as you make it you, I think then you're fine. You're golden. I think yeah, that's basically best advice I think I could give.
Fabulous. Well, Jess, it was truly an honor having you on. I'm so happy we made this work out. It was lovely chatting with you all about this. Can you share with the listeners where they can check out your blog and for any artists listening, how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. It was just absolutely a pleasure. I'm so glad we did this. Yeah, so you can find me at fiercefabulousrevolution.com and you can find all information about contacting me via either social media or emails on the About Me section on the website.
Perfect. Well, Jess, thank you so much again for joining me. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation all about music blogs. And of course, until next time, stay
Stay
right
right
on
on track.
track.